Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the annual Yom Hashoah Memorial Observance for the 6 million. My name is Ron Friedman, and I'm the president of the Fort Wayne Jewish Federation. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. I think you'll find tonight's program to be very moving. I'd like to thank the people who made this program possible, the Yom Hashoah Committee of the Fort Wayne Jewish Federation, and the program was also supported by the Dr. Harry W. Salem Foundation and the Dr. Lewis and Ann Schneider Foundation as well, so we thank them. Once the program is completed, please join us in the social hall in the back for light refreshments. And we also do want to thank and extend a special thank you to the students and faculty at Wayne New Tech High School for their assistance with all the Yom Hashoah events. And also, when the program is over, in the back we will have a number of amazing art projects that are submitted by the students of Mr. Jeff Roberts' social studies class at New Tech, and also submitted by Miss Ashley Lieben's 8th grade students at West Noble Middle School. So please take the time to look at those art projects and interact with the students who are also here. At this time, I would like to introduce one of the Wayne New Tech High School students, White Dove, who will introduce the deputy mayor. Unfortunately, Mayor Tom Henry was unable to make it tonight, but we have somebody able to stand in his place. So, White.
Welcome, everyone. I am White Dove, a student at New Tech Academy, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce a man that has always supported diversity, encouraged city growth, and community involvement. He has served as our deputy mayor since October 2013 and has more than 40 years of experience in local government and business. Mr. Vandermeer has been a Fort Wayne native since 8 years old, when his family moved from Chicago to Fort Wayne. He has 2 children. His son is an attorney here in Fort Wayne, and his daughter is a school teacher in Chicago. Deputy Mayor has 2 grandchildren in Chicago, but they are moving here later this spring. Prior to joining Mayor Henry's staff, he served as Vice President of Downtown Development for the Fort Wayne-Allen County Economic Development Alliance, now known as Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated. In his role with Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated and the Downtown Development Trust, Carl was instrumental in the successful Ash Skyline Plaza project, a more than $100 million investment in downtown Fort Wayne. From 1981 to 1986, he served as the city's economic development director. He also has experience in United Way in the private sector with leadership positions at Sturgis Development Group and North Hill Corporation. In addition, he has worked for the Region 3A Development and Regional Planning Commission, United Way of Allen County, and the Northeastern Indiana Regional Coordinating Council. It is an honor to have Deputy Mayor Vandermeer in attendance because he has always supported the Jewish community and students from all different walks of life. Thank you, and let's give Deputy Mayor Vandermeer a warm round of applause.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Sorry the mayor couldn't make it. He was down in Indianapolis and took sick, and I think he might still be down there. But he asked me to fill in. It's a particular pleasure to be here. I see a lot of my friends in the audience, so that makes it extra special. But you asked me here for a specific purpose, and so if I may, I will begin with that, is to read the following proclamation. Whereas the Holocaust occurred from 1933 to 1945 in Europe and resulted in the death of over 5 million Jews and millions of other victims, and whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments, and whereas citizens of Fort Wayne should always remember the dreadful events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny, and whereas these days of remembrance have been set aside for the residents of Fort Wayne to remember the victims of the Holocaust as well as reflect. Now therefore, I, Thomas C. Henry, Mayor of the City of Fort Wayne, Indiana, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2017 as Yom Hashoah Commemoration Day in Fort Wayne, encouraging all citizens to come together in remembrance of those who lost their lives, and to always remember that despite of differences, every life holds great value. In witness thereof, I hereby set my hand to cause the seal of office of the Mayor, City of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and affirm this 26th day, affirm this day 2017. Thank you very much.
fathom the enormity of loss. Our hearts try to gather in the countless faces. You, Holy One, summon each. Images burned in your remembrance. Help us to recall. Help us to recall their lives and their destruction. Bring us to your sacred place of memory, not only to bear witness, but to reassemble faith, to recover the defiled and make it holy. These slender flames are a promise and a charge, calling us to honor and to imitate righteousness. These flames illuminate truth's horror and hope's future. Your searing reminder, do not forget. Let us bless you, Holy One, touching fire to wick, 6 candles for the lost Jewish communities, for the righteous among the nations, for the victim groups represented by the badges of hate, for the survivors, for the resistors and the liberators, and for future generations. Let us bless you, Holy One, for you dry our tears, you comfort martyred souls, you bring us Shalom. I'd like to call the 6 individuals that will help us light the 6 candles. Please come forward. Samantha Vanderwall and Dahlia Alawa from Wayne Tech High School. Hannah Katinsky from Congregation Achut Shalom. Alex Martinez from Congregation B'nai Jacob. Adamara Silva and Jaramia James from Rest Noble Middle School. All 6 come forward. And one at a time, please light the candle. With that, thank you. Now, Patricia Rhoda from the IPFW Institute for Holocaust and Genocide Studies will help us do a Anashenesh poem. Ashrei Hagafrur Shenisraf Behitzit Lahavot.
Blessed is the match, consumed in kindling flame.
Ashrei Halahava Sheba'ara Basitrei Levavot.
Blessed is the flame that burns in the heart's secret places.
Ashrei Halavot Sheyad'u Lechadol Bikavod.
Blessed is the heart that knows for honor's sake to stop its beating.
Ashrei Hagafrur Shenisraf Behitzit Lehavot.
Blessed is the match, consumed in kindling flame.
Oh, wait a minute. We have one more now.
As we look at these lights, try to imagine 6 million candles, each one with the name of another Jew. Each one would signify a unique and precious soul who struggled and had hope, who was part of a family, an orphan, a widow, or a widower. They worked, studied, took walks, the ordinary things of life. They were all part of the Jewish people. Each one suffered, and every one was murdered. They are lost forever, their light extinguished. We are the light now. Only by our remembering can they live again in our hearts and minds.
The El Male Rachamim is a remembrance prayer for the soul departed. It means in Hebrew, God full of compassion. Let's read together the poem from Robert Burns, which we found on page 3. If only I could hold your face, if only I could wrap up the light from your eyes and put it away, safeguarding, safekeeping, against mistaken words, against parting of old age, against all human loneliness. We say that love has no beginning and no end. We know such love, flowing out of itself like a river that meets and parts and meets. It's for that love our eyes shine, but oh, for that time of parting, for that time we are not ever sufficiently short against. Tell me how to hold that precious light. Take my hands and bless them as they bless what they long to keep. Please rise for the Amale prayer and the
El Male Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Achat Kanfei Hashchina, In Kochim Utorim, Zohar Kiyamasirim Lenishmot Yekirenu Shehafu Olamim V'al Harachamim Istirem V'Seter Kenafan Le'olamim V'Yitzror HaKayim At Nishmatam Aranai kunachalatam, Yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam, v'nomar Amen.
Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find shelter in your presence among the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May they find a home in you, and may they rest in peace. Together, let us say, Amen. You may be seated. The Kaddish prayer is an opportunity to recognize our mortality, to consider the ephemeral nature of our being, and to contemplate the purpose of our presence on earth. We remember the lives of those who went before. Where appropriate, we draw comfort from the contribution that they made to our lives and to the lives of others. And we try to draw inspiration from these reflections in order to improve our own lives.
It is hard to sing of oneness when our world is not complete. When those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and no memory can fill the emptiness that passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were, in company with those we love. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to those who have departed when we live our lives most fully. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world.
Please rise for the God.
You'll also find the transliteration there for those who can't read these. Yikadal v'yikadash Hashem Rabbah v'yamad v'yifrach yutei v'yamlik makutei v'kayekon v'yomekon v'chei kol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'torah v'olam v'lomei hamayah Yitvarach v'yishkavach v'yitahar v'yitvaman v'yitnaseh Hadar v'Taleh v'Talal Shnei Kedusha v'Richu. Le'elam min kol birkata v'shirata. V'ushkata v'nekamata. Damiram v'yama v'Hibru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'Hibru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Yeromah. Hu Yahaseh Shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'Hibru. Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us, for all Israel, and for all the world. Let us say, Amen.
You may be seated. And now welcome Dr. Schreiber, the Executive Director of the Service.
Good evening. It is an honor to introduce Dr. David Lindquist, who brought this evening's keynote speaker, Stephen Feinberg, to Fort Wayne. Dr. Lindquist is an associate professor emeritus in the College of Education and Public Policy at IPSW. He has spent his entire career in education, having taught at Snyder High School for 30 years. While at Snyder, Dr. Lindquist was the chair of the Social Studies Department and was named a distinguished teacher by the White House Commission on Presidential Scholars. While at IPFW, he taught courses in curriculum, research, educational foundations, and secondary school methods, while also serving as coordinator of the undergraduate secondary education program. He was a co-founder of the Institute for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. Dr. Lindquist has been associated with the United States Holocaust Museum since he was named a Mandel Teacher Fellow in 1997. He's been a member of the museum's regional education course since that group was founded in 2005. He has been involved in teacher training programs at many diverse locations. He studied the Holocaust at historical sites in the Netherlands, Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic, at Yad Vashem and the Ghetto Fighters House in Israel. Dr. Lindquist has published many research articles, with the majority of those works focusing on the theory and pedagogy of Holocaust and genocide education. Anyone who has taken a structured class or seminar with Dr. Lindquist fully realizes how he has honed the craft of teaching, allowing his students to interpersonalize difficult subject matter and trigger within us the desire to learn more. Years ago, when my son was in 5th grade, his teacher had to spend winter break having surgery. When he returned to school, I asked how he was doing. He told me excellently. I then made a comment that now seems rather flippant. Wow, you must be very thankful that your surgeon had a curiosity for learning and studied hard. Without missing a beat, this teacher said, yes, I am. However, I'm also very thankful that he had teachers who also studied hard and inspired his curiosity. Good teachers never fully realize the positive effects they've had on their students to learn more and be more. Because of teachers like Dr. Lindquist, we have some outstanding teachers with us this evening who continue to inspire their students to be curious and study hard, make a positive difference in the world, and become upstanders, not bystanders, when evil occurs. Please join me in welcoming Dr. David Lindquist.
Thank you, Debbie. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce our speaker for this Yom Hashoah event, Mr. Steve Feinberg. Steve's resume presents an impressive career in education and public service. He earned a bachelor's degree in history from UCLA, a master's degree in education from Harvard. After serving with the Peace Corps in Morocco and Thailand and teaching at the International School in Paris, he embarked upon a highly successful teaching career near Boston and served as a consultant to the Education Department of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. He is also co-editor of 2 outstanding anthologies dealing with Holocaust education. From 1997 until his retirement in 2011, Steve was a senior staff member of the Education Department at the museum. In that capacity, he directed the Mandel Fellowship Program. Several of us here tonight are members of that program. He originated and administered the Regional Education Corps and directed the National Outreach for Teacher Education Division. He also represented the museum in international forums, particularly as a delegate to the International Task Force. More importantly, are several facets of Steve's work as a Holocaust educator that don't show up on a resume. He has served as a program director, a colleague, a mentor, a supervisor, and a friend to Holocaust educators across the country and throughout the world. In fulfilling these roles, Steve has always emphasized three factors that are critical to the success of Holocaust education. First, the need to know the history and to know it well. Second, the need to present that history with detailed accuracy. And third, the imperative to present the topic to students in ways that are appropriate for their maturity levels. Teaching the Holocaust is difficult, it's complex, and Steve is a master of master teachers. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Steve Feinberg to our presentation.
Okay. Did you ever get an introduction and wonder who the heck they're talking about? It sounded so good. In a law that was passed by our Congress almost 37 years ago, unanimously, the Congress of the United States rarely does anything with unanimity, a national day to commemorate the Holocaust in the Days of Remembrance was created. It is an honor for me to be here, and it's very difficult to follow some of the presentations before me. I'm overwhelmed by the beautiful singing that I heard today. It's remarkable. It's more than rather good. It's excellent. It's extraordinary. What I want to do today is talk to you about what Days of Remembrance is all about. Days of Remembrance, and I hope you can all see this. Days of Remembrance is not about the Jews. It is about people, individuals. Whether a beautiful woman with a smile from the ghetto in Kutno, taken by a Jewish photographer, to little Isvan Reiner, the little boy, Hungarian boy. We remember individuals today whose lives were cut short, horribly interrupted by the actions of Nazi Germany and its collaborators. Part of remembrance is historical accuracy. So it's important to remember that these individuals were oppressed not only by Germans, but by the many nations, organizations, and people who collaborated with Nazi Germany. Major historians have said, no collaboration, no Holocaust. But on this day, it is also important to remember survivors of the Holocaust and those who rescued people during the Holocaust, the individuals, the organizations. On this day, we need to remember them. From various religions, numerous nations, various organizations, these people, at risk of their lives often, saved people for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. Some of these people, some of you might know, some of you might not. It's awfully hard for people to realize that Jews rescued Jews. The woman in the top row, third over, Władka Mead. Władka Mead was a young Polish girl at the outbreak of the war in '39 who was active in the Socialist Bund in Poland. She had blue eyes, blonde hair, and very pale pink skin. But most importantly, she spoke Polish without a Yiddish accent. Her mother had known a Polish seamstress, and the seamstress had a daughter, and Władka and the daughter played together in Saxon Park in Warsaw. And she learned to speak Polish with this little girl, so her Polish was perfect. So Blanka was asked by the Bund leadership after the war broke out in September of '39 to smuggle information in, smuggle weaponry in if necessary, and smuggle things out of the ghetto. Her memoir is called On Both Sides of the Wall, and she lived on both sides of the wall. There were other Jewish rescuers. The Bielski brothers rescued Jews. The Armée Juive in France, the partisans. There were other people. The woman in the crown, I don't know if any of you know who that is. It's the mother of the husband of Queen Elizabeth. Her name is Princess Alice of Greece. She hid Jews in Greece when the Nazis invaded. She is recognized as one of the righteous. There are Greek Orthodox rescuers. There are Catholic rescuers. It is important on Yom HaShoah to recognize these people. Less than 2 weeks ago, the Holocaust Museum, which is pictured here, issued a statement that said, the Holocaust teaches us profound truths about human societies and our capacity for evil. An accurate understanding of this history is critical if we are to learn its lessons and honor its victims. And that is what I'm going to try to do tonight, is tell you a little bit of the history of the Holocaust and why it is important to remember. Images of the Holocaust are well known. The picture at the top is the entrance to Auschwitz-Birkenau, a camp that was built specifically to murder Jews, and over 1.5 million Jews were murdered there. Whether it's the iconic image of Auschwitz-Birkenau or a picture of newly released inmates at Dachau, which is the bottom picture on the left, or one of the many pictures of a mother and a child in one of the ghettos of Eastern Europe, the Holocaust is an important historical event that is now culturally familiar in America. When the music portion of the program began, the theme music from Schindler's List was played. I'm sure many of you realize that was from Schindler's List, because the Holocaust is now part of the American cultural experience. The Days of Remembrance offer us an opportunity to explore some of the reasons why it's important to remember. And the first one, I don't know if you can read that, the Holocaust was a watershed event, not only in the 20th century, but in all the history of humanity. It was unprecedented, as the scholar Yehuda Bauer describes it. Never before had one group of people determined that another group of people had no right to live at all. That is unprecedented in human history. In the heart of the capital of the perpetrator, Berlin, you have a memorial. I don't know how many of you have been there, but it is literally in the heart of the city to show the importance of remembering what occurred and what was done primarily by the German people, but later by the collaborators. The impact of the Holocaust today is seen in how nations actively work to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. The word genocide was coined after the Holocaust by a Polish Jewish refugee, Raphael Lemkin. Prior to the Holocaust, it didn't exist. But today, in the upper left photo, we have an international criminal court that can try people for the crime of genocide. That is the impact, one of the impacts of the Holocaust. The upper right photograph of the trials at Nuremberg shows that nation states are now going to be held accountable in trials, public trials, by the international community. The bottom left photograph, the impact of the Holocaust is how the concept of informed consent has influenced ethical approaches to medical experimentations on human beings. And the photograph at the bottom right, I don't know if it's coming out clear, but it is a march of Jewish survivors in a DP camp in Germany. The impact was how the idea of a Jewish homeland in Palestine gained urgency because of the ravages of the Holocaust. Remembering the Holocaust is also important, because it promotes an understanding of the ramifications of prejudice, racism, and and stereotyping in any society. This is a cartoon that was published just a few days after the November pogrom in Germany, that's also known as Kristallnacht. 91 Jews were killed and approximately 30,000 were arrested and sent to Nazi concentration camps at Buchenwald, Dachau, and Sachsenhausen. The Kristallnacht, or the November pogrom, was the first example of a government-sponsored and directed mass violence by the Nazis against the Jewish community as a Jewish community. Prior to Kristallnacht, many Jews had been kicked out of jobs, they had lost their homes and businesses, but there had not been an organized state attack on the entire Jewish community. The pogrom of November 9th and 10th was the first attempt. What many people do not realize is most of the people who were arrested that evening, those 2 evenings, were released. Most people arrested between 33 and 39 and sent to camps were released. With the start of the war and the construction of killing centers, people who entered those camps did not leave alive. But prior to the war, they did. The ramifications of stereotyping could be found in what Germany did to its youth, teaching them that there were races. The photograph at the top left was of a chart used in German schools. Copies of those charts can be seen at the Holocaust Museum in Washington if you ever visit them. Children were taught to hate, actively taught to hate. The image on the right side of the screen was for a movie called The Eternal Jew. That is German, but written as if it's Hebrew, the Ewiger Jude. That shows the Jew as malformed, with a hunched shoulder. It shows the Jew as a capitalist and at the same time as a communist, which to our way of thinking is impossible. How can you be a capitalist and a communist? But if you believed in Nazi ideology, the Jew would use any means to attain his end, which was domination. So you could be a Rothschild as a capitalist, or you could be Leon Trotsky or Kaganovich as a communist. The Jew was crafty. He attained world domination any way possible. The Jew was a slave driver. And many years ago, a teacher in a Christian school pointed out to me that the whip in his hand is often pictured in pictures of the scourging of Christ on the way to Golgotha. Prejudice, stereotyping, racism can lead to public humiliation, private humiliation. The photograph at the bottom left is of Jews in Vienna who were forced to clean the streets of Vienna with brushes and often with toothbrushes, while the citizenry stood around, laughed, cackled. Days of Remembrance should remind people that racism, stereotyping, prejudging people is not the way to live in a democratic society or any society. It's also important to remember the Holocaust because it provides a context for showing what happens in a society when you remain silent. Those are 2 cartoons. The one on the left was drawn by an Englishman, very famous Englishman named Mr. Law, L-A-W. I believe his first name was John. It was held after a conference that was called by President Franklin Roosevelt after Kristallnacht. It was called to say, what are we going to do about all the Jews who want to immigrate? It was known as the Evian Conference. It was held in Evian. The title of the cartoon on the left is called Whither, meaning where now? And it's an image of a person who is labeled with Nazi language. He's not labeled as a Jew, although it's clearly a Jew. He's wearing a yarmulke. He is not a Muslim wearing a tagiya. He is a Jew wearing a yarmulke. And he is sitting at the crossroads of a swastika. And everywhere he goes at the end it says stop. Whither? At the same time, approximately the same time, a cartoon appeared in an American newspaper. I believe it was the New York Times. I might be wrong. No, it was the New York Daily Mirror. A boat had left Europe, the St. Louis, with refugees that came to America wanting to get in. Well, actually, it went to Havana. They had gotten fake Cuban entry visas. When the boat got to Havana, the government of Cuba, under German pressure, refused to allow them in. The people on the boat begged the White House to let them in. The White House did not let them in. It was been in violation of our immigration laws at the time. This cartoonist wrote a big sign on the Statue of Liberty, "Keep out, keep out." And it was alongside an article that was headlined, "Ashamed," saying America was denying its own heritage by not letting these people in. The boat returned to Europe. Halfway across the Atlantic, 4 countries agreed to take a quarter of the passengers: England, France, Belgium, and Holland. Most of the people on that ship survived the war. A very small number were caught up when France was captured, and Belgium and Holland. 2 very salient quotes point out the dangers. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who paid with his life for opposing the Nazi regime and refusing to go along with the state Lutheran Church, said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." About a month before the end of the war, he was hung, was killed by the Nazis. The other quote is by Albert Einstein. "The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it." Both of these quotes point out that the very important fact that when you remember the victims of the Holocaust, you have to remember what happens when you are silent and apathetic in the face of evil. Very interesting that in the civil rights, I'm old enough to remember marching in the 60s. And there was a saying, "All that's necessary for evil to win is for enough good men to do nothing." I understand that was incorrectly assigned to Edmund Burke, the father of conservatism. There's no valid proof for it. But Martin Luther King basically said the same thing. If you see evil in segregation and you do nothing, you are supporting segregation. Another reason for remembering the Holocaust is it helps us to understand how a modern nation can use technology to do evil things. Okay, new technologies are invented all the time, and they are put to use, sometimes not the way they were intended to be used. When television became common in America, the chairman of the Federal Communications System, Newton Minow, said, "We have this wonderful tool, and what are we producing?" He called it a vast wasteland. We were producing garbage. Instead of using the tool for meaningful ways to educate the populace, we were using it in cheap ways, like the Romans used the Colosseum. We showed our sports. We showed comedies. We showed very little, according to Newton Minow, positive things that could have elevated the American population. Technology in the form, for example, of this machine, which was known as the hologram machine. It was one of the first punch card technologies. At the end of the 19th century, about 1885, a German immigrated to America. His name was Hermann Hollerith. He developed a concept that you could transfer information from paper to punch cards. And he offered to help the U.S. in the 1890 census. U.S. government agreed to it, and for the first census ever in America, punch cards were used in 1890. You would ask the person's address, you would ask their age, you would ask their country of origin, because in America in 1890, a vast number of Americans were immigrants. And then these answers would be put on a punch card, and a machine like that would read it. Hermann Hollerith was a very smart man. He never sold his machine to anyone. He leased it. He would lease it. He went back to Europe and he said to European governments, look, America has used it in their census, will you use it in yours? And Herman Hollerith became an extremely wealthy man doing census in many countries in Europe, Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden. When he got old and retired, he sold his company to a new young American company called International Business Machines. Some of you might have heard of that. International Business Machine continued to lease the machine. They would not sell it to anyone. In 1939, the Nazis, after 6 years in power, ordered a census. The information on the card that they used was different than any other information used by any country at any time. It asked religion, it asked nation of origin, and it used this, Adolf Eichmann especially, used the information to create the Jewish registry. It contained detailed information on all Jews living in Germany. After the Anschluss in 1938, when Austria was added to Germany, again a census was taken. The registry recorded the names of the Jews in Austria and the Sudetenland after the Munich Conference, which was occupied by German troops in 38, and then all of Czechoslovakia was occupied in March of 39. The Nazis used this technology also to create vast lists of numbers. If you remember, prisoners were given numbers. They used these numbers to transfer prisoners from Dachau to Auschwitz. Technology and information were under other circumstances very helpful tools because the Nazis found it a wonderful way of locating their victims. Trains were another piece of technology that was used quite well. I don't know if you can see that map closely. I'll go up and point it out. That is the European rail system in 1939. That's Auschwitz, literally right in the center of the European rail system. The other killing camps, Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, Majdanek, and even Helmau outside of Łódź, were all on or near major train lines. Now, once the war began in 1939, imagine you're an official in the Reichsbahn, the German railway. You have to create a schedule to allow for regular passenger service, military transport of troops, military transport of logistical support, and trains to transport Jews all over Europe to camps, beginning in 1942. The people who created those schedules, those bureaucrats, I'd be shocked if any of you in this room could name a single name of any of those bureaucrats. But it was those people that arranged for the transport of the Jews who were transported to their death in the killing camps. That's a pretty awesome use of technology for an evil end. Technology was also used in social engineering. Nazis believed in social engineering. They wanted to create a pure state. So the best way to create a pure state is first to get rid of those that are impure. Obviously, the Jews. Once the war started, the Jews were to be deported out. The goal of the Nazis from 1933 to 1939 was immigration. The goal was to get the Jews out of Germany. It was relatively easy to get out. It was much harder to get into someplace else, but it was easy to get out. One of the first people to get out was a very wise, not particularly religious Jewish man from Frankfurt who had traveled to America. He was a businessman. He moved his family to Amsterdam. It was Otto Frank. The Anne Frank family left in 1934, early. The other purification was to purify the non-Jewish Germans. The first gassings were not of Jews. They were mentally and physically handicapped Germans who were not pure. That's using the technology of the time to purify their own race. You would purify later, once the war began, you would eliminate the primary enemy, the Jew. But first you would eliminate the impurities in your own society. The book title that is up there, The Origins of the Nazi Genocide, was written by a survivor named Henry Friedlander. That is a map of the centers in Germany. There were 6 centers in Germany. Many of you might know some of their names. Hadamar, Bernberg, to name 2 of them. These places were sanitariums where mentally and physically handicapped, mostly non-Jewish Germans were killed. They were killed in primitive gas chambers. They were killed by starving them to death. They were killed by injections in veins and arteries to produce embolism, and fentanyl injections in the heart to stop the heart beating. The people who designed those primitive gas chambers were the same people who 3-4 years down the road built the gas chambers at Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzhitz, people who created the gas vans at Hellville and the crematoriums in Auschwitz. The use of technology. It's very important on the Days of Remembrance to think of how technology is used. Where do a lot of people in America today get their information? They get it from Twitter. The use of technology. Very important to think about its consequences. Holocaust it allows us to think about the roles and responsibilities of individuals, organizations, and nations when confronted with policies of genocide. The gentleman on the left was Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli. He was an apostolic delegate from the Vatican to Turkey. He was among the most sensitive leaders in the Catholic Church to the Jewish tragedy that was unfolding in Europe. And he was probably one of the most vigorous in rescue efforts. He wrote immigration certificates to Palestine through his office. And he rescued Jews by means of certificates of baptism of convenience, he called them, sent to priests all over Europe. And he would write on these baptismal certificates of convenience. The bearer of this certificate is a co-religionist of Jesus Christ. He later was elected Pope John the 23rd. He is now Saint John the 23rd. He is a fine example of an individual who, when confronted with the politics of genocide, acted. One would like to say all religious leaders did. The reality is they did not. The gentleman on the right, many of you probably don't know Father Bruno Weidner. He was a Benedictine monk from Belgium who presided over a vast rescue effort, particularly of children. And it's estimated that he saved between 300 and 400 Jewish children. He organized an underground operation to provide them shelter. Hundreds of Jewish youngsters were dispersed in religious and secular institutions, as well as in private houses all over Belgium. He saw to it that the children were provided with ration cards and false identification papers, that financial support was given to the host families that hid these Jews. In 1964, Bruno was recognized as righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem. There were other people who, in confronting genocide, acted. Some of them very bizarre. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the organization Żegona. Żegona was a Polish society to rescue Jews, whose basic philosophy was, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Jews were being hunted by the Nazis. We hate the Nazis, therefore we're going to help the Jews. The twist of this was many of the people in Jagoda were anti-Semites. There was a long history of Polish anti-Semitism. There was also a long history of philo-Semitism among certain segments of the Polish population. The most famous woman in Jagoda was that woman, Irina Sendler, who saved hundreds, some say thousands, of Jewish children from the Warsaw Ghetto. The gentleman in the middle at the top was Raoul Wallenberg. He was a member of a very prominent family in Sweden, a family that had been accused after the war of active collaboration with the Nazis. He was from a junior part of the family, not the main branch. He had been educated in America. He was recommended by the War Refugee Board to go to Budapest. He went to Budapest and he issued Schutzpasses. And it's estimated that he saved thousands, some say almost 100,000 Hungarian Jews were murdered by the Nazis. Because the Nazis were pretty efficient in Hungary. Hungary had been an ally, a collaborator with Nazi Germany. And it was not until March of 1944 that Hungary was invaded by the Nazis. It was invaded because the leadership was trying to send out peace feelers. And the Nazis felt that if Hungary fell, militarily it would be horrible on the Eastern Front, so they invaded Hungary. Between May and November of 44, 400,000 Hungarian Jews were murdered in Auschwitz. Very small period of time. The gentleman at the top right is Nicholas George Winton. Nicholas George Winton was a stockbroker from Britain who organized the rescue of 669. And George always made sure it was 669, not 700, not 600 and 669. Most of these children were from Czechoslovakia, and he did it on the eve of the Second World War in an operation that was later known as the Czech Kindertransport. He was an individual who saw wrong and did what was right. Was that simple. And that throughout his entire life, he lived into his hundreds. That he would always say, I did what was right. It was same with a little village in France, Le Chambon-Saulnier, which was a Protestant village, a Huguenot village. Huguenots had been persecuted by the Catholic Church in France. But there was this tiny little village, mostly of Huguenots, Le Chambon. And Jews were saved in Le Chambon. And after the war, when the pastor of the town, André Trocmé, was asked, why did you do it? He said, when somebody knocks on your door and asks for help, Christ tells you, help them. It's that simple. There was evil, they needed help, we helped. The gentleman at the bottom, most of you probably have no idea who that is. His name is Dimitar Peshev. He was the deputy speaker of the parliament of Bulgaria. Bulgaria was also an ally of the Nazis. And the Nazis actually gave part of Greece and part of Yugoslavia to Bulgaria. And then they demanded that Bulgaria hand over its 50,000 Jews. And the government of Bulgaria refused to do it. They said, the Jews in the land that you gave us, we'll give you back the land and you do what you feel is necessary. But the 50,000 Jews of Bulgaria, Peshev made sure that obstacles were put in front of their deportation. And he and the Bulgarian Orthodox Archbishop of Sofia made sure that 50,000 Jews of Bulgaria were not deported to their death. Oops. By remembering the Holocaust, we gain awareness of the complexity of the subject, and there is what's called a word cloud. These are wonderful things that can be created on a computer. The Holocaust has no simple answers. The Holocaust is very complex. It was a conversion of factors that led to the disintegration of democratic values in Europe, especially in Germany. Even though Germany did not have a history of democracy, it had a structural democracy that was legally dismantled. And there were many, many reasons for it. There was no one simple reason democracy ended. Some people say this, the first sign of an assault on democracy is when you have to speak up. You don't wait and say, oh, well, that first assault was minor. We'll wait till something major. You have to be very alert in a democracy. I'm going to close this program with what is written in the Hall of Remembrance in the Holocaust Museum. That's the Hall of Remembrance. That's an eternal flame. And underneath that flame is soil from the 6 camps and then other camps in the Nazi system. Only guard yourself and guard your soul carefully, lest you forget the things your eyes saw, and lest these things depart your heart all the days of your life. And you shall make them known to your children and to your children's children. Or as it says at the entrance of this synagogue, remember, lest from this we learn nothing. Thank you very much.
May we take his message to heart. Thank you all for coming to this event. Thank you for remembering the victims of the Holocaust. As you leave the sanctuary, you will be given a candle. Please light it in your dwelling places tonight. For tonight, we will remember the people whose lives were degraded and cut short in the Shoah. As you leave, also, be sure to go to Fellowship Hall in the back and see the work of the students. They have done a lot of research about particular people. You can learn from them and their storyboards and their displays and their art. Thank you all for coming.
Last year, I enjoyed it.